I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV and Channel 99. Our guest is Matt Fee.
Nice to see you, Dan. Good to be here.
Nice to see you. Glad to have you. You are running once again for the Board of Selectmen.
I am, yes.
You're up for a second term.
I am.
In your second go-round.
Yes.
Which brings me to a question that I should ask everybody, but I haven't yet. Term limits. What's your view on term limits? I think there's a proposal before town meeting for...
There is, and I favor it. I think 2 terms, 3 terms, and get off for a while is not a bad thing. So.
All right, let's go on to something really important.
Yeah.
What, in terms of what has been accomplished and what you'd like to see accomplished in your second term, where are the priorities for you at this point, in a broad sense?
Broad sense, I think. My first term, I'd say we've been focusing on sidewalks, water quality, and improved management, and I think in a broad sense, and I think we've done a pretty good job on that, and I would like to try to improve that. I'd like to continue.
Improved management. Let's talk about that. What are the objectives there in terms of?
It's kind of across the board. I caught the tail end of your previous interview, and you were talking about enforcement, and I think some of the enforcement issues are human nature. You're fighting human nature. People, as soon as they have a chance to not have to say no to someone else, they'll hire somebody else to say no. And if there's management isn't there making sure that you're enforcing the tough things, then it sort of falls apart. So I think that's so from a management perspective, I think that's important. I mean, fertilizer regulations have to be enforceable. You have to find a way to.
If it's a question of money, can't we find the money for some of this enforcement? I mean, it's not just the fertilizer regulations. It's HDC orders that get violated. It's building department requirements that get violated, and nothing often seems to get done about them.
I think the money is often an excuse. I don't think it's necessarily a money issue. I think it's a lot of times it's a willingness issue. It's tough to be the bad guy.
Right.
It's tough to be the person handing out the parking tickets, or upsetting your neighbors, your friends and your neighbors. And so if you can avoid doing that, why don't you? And so I just think we need to realize that some of those rules are in place to benefit everyone, not just the individuals.
But then they have to be enforced with an even hand.
Exactly, that's important.
They can't be enforced selectively or
exactly.
But anyway, that's another topic for another time. Town meeting.
Yes.
There's some big issues at town meeting. I guess
the
biggest one is the sewers.
Yes, they are.
Where are you on that issue?
Well, I ran again to try to finally get this thing put to bed, and we're, who knows whether it will be or not. I hope it does. I'm in favor of the 75-25% split. I think we've done a lot of work toward, sort of mitigating it for people who are caught in between, in putting in a new system or not. I think so.
The argument, though, could be made that sewers are a basic human need. Waste.
Right.
Human waste disposal is a basic need and a fundamental task of government.
That argument is being made,
right.
And it's being, the easiest thing for me right now, and I can't speak for Rick, but there's sort of 2 of us who are saying that, I've been operating off the principle that we should be, these people should be paying betterments about what it would cost for a new AI system that they're going to be required to do anyhow. We're not just representing the 400-600 people who are in this situation right now. We're representing the thousands of people who are never going to be sewered, that are going to be on septics and never sewered. We're representing all the taxpayers. So you have to sort of try to strike a fair balance. And I think the 75-25, as it is now, is a pretty fair balance that people can get behind.
The argument also is being made that any sewering that's done benefits all of Nantucket.
It does.
and in a significant way. Or if maybe the reverse is true. If it isn't done, it will have a detrimental effect potentially on all of Nantucket. And therefore, again, that it's really fairer for the taxpayers, as they did up until the wastewater treatment plant issue came up 10 years ago.
Well, that was, and now we're going back into old history,
Right.
but previous to that plant, I think the most we ever spent was a couple $1 million. 90% of it was covered by the feds or the state.
Yeah, but we redid all the sewers downtown over the last 10 years or
Oh,
so, and those were paid entirely by the taxpayers.
Well, sort of, because some of it was paid from, we have the third. Some of those costs, I believe, are paid by some of the new connections, because some of those weren't, or should have been, because some of that was increasing the capacity to run the pipes further. So there were other ways that we were trying to capture it. But you also have to realize downtown has been paying taxes and maintaining that for hundred of years.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing people forget is that, or conveniently don't want to remember, is when they buy into a subdivision with or without sewer, it's already been installed. They're paying for it, whether whether it's written down on what they buy or not. It's part of their purchase price, and it's how the lot is valued. It's how their property is valued, and so if the state
You're
was
saying if it was not sewered, the value would be less. Is that what you're saying?
exactly, if it's not sewer, the
So-
value is less. And
but the
gaining
flip
sewer
side-
is going to increase value.
But it's also an increased taxes. And so that's another cost on top of the new system, decommissioning the old system, hooking up, and
It's
all
true.
that.
No,
all
and,
that
and, I've,
stuff.
and I've heard the arguments
Yeah.
both ways. Where it gets tricky, when you say you go out, go out on Shimo Pond and go to Kelly Road, and then right across the street, someone's going to put a $70,000 system in, and because he's not going to be included, he's going to put it in fully at his cost. And then the person on the correct side of it, if we do 100% of the tax base, they're going to pay the $10,000 or $12,000 to clean up their yard. So in between, I think there is a fair number to be found. People also have to take the large view on it and say, okay, at the 60-40 split, $1.7 million house was going to cost, in 5 years, was going to have a $600 a year increase in taxes. So I haven't seen the number at a 75-25 split. So let's say it's 650. All right, is that going to make it less likely for people to vote for for the next sewer extension? If 5 years out people open their tax bills and it's quite a bit more, when everyone's sort of been thinking, oh, our taxes are cheap, we don't pay anything,
Yeah,
we can
but-
raise them, it never costs us. It's going to start. It has started to cost commercial users. It's going to start to cost everybody, and then are they all going to be so happy about it? So you have to, I look at it and say you have to look at the big picture.
No, I agree, and I think you can interpret the big picture different ways, as people interpret paintings differently when they look
Exactly.
at them. But it's important that these issues all get out there and people
Right.
understand what they are and understand what your position is.
Yeah, and it's people have their self-interest, and I completely understand that, and I think that, that will play out the way it will. I think sort of why I've kept to the principle I've kept is I think it's dangerous to not be to sort of just play politics on things. If you've agreed to do something in a certain way and then you get a lot of pressure and you flip-flop or cave, it sort of doesn't seem right at times. If there's an overriding reason, great, I can change my mind as quick as anybody. But in this case, it's hard.
The housing bank.
Yes.
What's your position on that?
I think it's a worthwhile to pursue. I'm not sure we're going to succeed and get it, but I believe it's an important aspect. I think housing is one of our key issues.
We'll come back to use of two fairgrounds, or at least the corner of two Fairgrounds Road in a minute. But what about the rest of the Fairgrounds Road property? There still will be some available there when the new fire station's built and whatever happens at the corner of
I think
Old South Road.
Yeah, there's probably 100 plus, between all there's probably 180, 200 units potentially infilled all around once those others are put in place.
There doesn't really seem to be a will on the part of the town, though, to move forward with that, which is the way the purchase was advertised originally.
I was part of that, and
Yeah.
I wasn't. That's part of why I ran again. I thought we should be looking at that whole property and developing it as a whole. I think the last couple schematics of the first time, I felt like someone didn't just plop something in the middle of the property. When we got the town building put on that corner with the other stuff laid out, I started to feel like, okay, here's an architect who's looking at the whole, or a designer who's looking at the whole property for the first time, really, which was nice.
Yeah, well, it is good, but until there's some sort of commitment, more than's been given already to proceed.
I think there is a commitment. We've got Tucker's working on it. The board has made it pretty clear we want to have him get back with something. It's tricky though. I think because a lot of people are hoping that the town will solve their housing problem for them. I think the town needs to solve its own housing problem first. So I don't think that we should be, giving that land away cheap or an RFP and making it possible for someone to put up housing to sell or whatever and having the town not get benefit. The township needs its maximum benefit out of that property. And the biggest benefit it can have is to be able to hire and retain employees. Right. Just like the rest of us. They're in the same boat right now. So.
What about the moving of the town building? The article on the warrant is obviously to repeal the prohibition against moving town offices out, which has been ignored and violated. At least a couple times.
It has a couple. They didn't ignore it in the case of the police station. There was a specific
exception, but plus
all of that, yeah.
And now they have a plan for a building, which sort of is if they build it, they will come. It seems to be sort of that kind of approach. What's your view?
My view has shifted over the years. I think I would love to see everything remain downtown. I don't see that as realistic and viable at this point. I also don't feel that right now the damage has been done. The police have moved out. All the business at Plus. Those are the two busiest departments.
Right.
And from a customer benefits.
And the Board of Selectmen meetings have moved too.
Exactly. Board has moved, which I didn't really like when they did that. But so the damage has been done, and so now I feel like we're picking up the pieces. It took me a day and a half, almost 2 days, to get my common victualer's license this year. I had to go out of town, back into town, someone isn't in, leave the form at their office, come back and pick it up at the police station, go back in town. It took me, honestly, almost 2 full days to get, and so that isn't customer service. That isn't what the town should be doing. The other reason I really feel strongly, and Rick has kind of changed my tune on this a little bit, is I think you can't have a bifurcated government. You can't have the planning arm in one area and the town in another area, and then they sort of meet, but not really. I think it's going to be really important to have everybody in the same building dealing, because a lot of the issues involve all the different dynamics. They do all the different diversity. You need to be able to.
There's no way you could do that downtown.
No, there's not a chance. So you could if you built.
How many square feet are there in the town building? Do you know?
I did. It's. I want to say it's.
I should know, but I don't.
I want to say it's. 26,000. I don't know.
So what they're proposing
I did know.
is essentially.
I know Academy Hill's twice as big because I looked at Academy Hill and said, "Geez, if we could get Academy Hill back." But we can't. I looked into whether we could get that back and move them there. It'd be out of the floodplain, build a parking garage next to it, and we could go the next 100, 150 years at Academy Hill. But
one logical course when they built the police station was to move the courtroom out there. Then you wouldn't have to worry about getting people back and forth, bringing them downtown, that kind of thing. Then you'd have a full building there. And apparently what's going to be left are essentially the court plus the state offices.
Right, and the deeds.
The deed, well, that's a state.
State, yeah. And Catherine,
And Catherine, the town clerk.
Right.
But is that enough of a commitment to downtown from the town?
I think the commitment to downtown right now should be, it should be figuring out the roads, fixing the sidewalks, making the downtown, more pedestrian and visitor friendly. I think a commitment to downtown is making the tough decision on demand management for parking, so that people that want to go downtown can drive in and find a space. I think 10%, we should set the pricing so 10% of the spaces are open at any one time. And that would be a commitment to the businesses downtown. I think the idea...
Not in February.
Well, even in February, my cousin was trying, Terry, she was trying to go down to the Culinary Center, went 3 days in a row, and couldn't get within 3 blocks of the place. In the pouring rain, she didn't she's visited since, but wasn't able to get in there. So I think, and it's a lot of the...
But that's new. I mean, that is, just opened in the last couple of months.
It has.
And before that, you could, roll a rock down Broad Street, and
you could. And I'm not saying it, but we've had fits and starts downtown before, and basically down this time of year, it takes enforcement very little. Just if people just thought about the other businesses and the impact they have parking in front of their business and just parked in the 2-hour zone, then you wouldn't need to enforce all winter.
Do they enforce?
Probably if someone complains. I'm not sure.
What else is on the agenda for town meeting that you feel strongly about?
Oh, now you got me. I'm not sure. There's a lot.
All of these capital projects sort of have come along in a, way that makes people wonder how seriously the town is committed to long-term planning, and everything's happening at once, it seems.
And I think some of this is a result of the lack of long-term planning for many years. I think it's also it's a good environment to be borrowing money. We haven't seen rates this low, and probably aren't going to see them again.
That's a good point.
So I think that in that way it's good. I also do think that the town, I think Libby has shown some leadership and has really pushed some of this, and to her credit, I think some of this is needed. It may not be exactly what I thought I wanted in 1990 or 1995 or 2000, but it's I think it's what's needed in Nantucket now. We've got 20,000 people probably here in the winter year round. So
do we really think it's that
I do.
many?
Yeah. If you talk to Catherine, I think she'd say the same thing. It's high.
It'll be interesting to see what happens if we have another recession,
Right.
and how many empty places there are in the new school, and as a result of that.
Right.
Another issue that is facing the town is dealing with the crowds coming over on the high-speed ferries.
Right.
There are going to be something like 12 a day
Right.
under the schedules that are set up for this summer. I mean, assuming most of them are reasonably full, is it different from when the High Line had slow boats? Arguably no, but you've got this concentration of people constantly
I think
descending on downtown.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very different, and we've taken some steps. One of the steps we have is a taking article at town meeting for the 2 spaces in front of Captain Toby's. Those so that we can address sort of the sidewalk and the entrance down there.
Right.
Until we deal with that, we can't address that at all. We'd like to widen the sidewalk, maybe move the parking over to the other side of the street, so that it's a little easier for people getting on and off the boat.
Right.
And the town has been is working with the owners down there to sort of find a better way to handle the influx of people.
What do you see as happening to the tank farm area?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that there's the retail demand that everyone thinks there is. I'm not so sure it's going to... I would love it to... Maybe it'll end up being, condo apartments, open space.
Parking garage?
Maybe a parking garage. I'm changing my tune a little bit, but you can't do a garage unless you are willing to charge the fair cost for parking on the street. You can't have the less convenient space cost money and the most convenient be free. You have to have a whole system.
Although I will acknowledge that I know some other people who have willingly paid the valet parking on a busy day in the summer just
Right.
to avoid the hassle of even looking for a spot on the street.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But that it all has to be. If you go somewhere like Northampton, the parking garage is furthest away, or the parking lots furthest away are free, for residents, and like $1 a day or something. And then as you get closer to, it's 50 cents an hour or something. It has to be tiered like that to have it work properly, and you have to be flexible. Someone has to take care of it and make sure that, when one is under more demand, you change the price. It's a whole different way of thinking about it.
one last question.
Okay.
Do you still think you have the drive and ambition, in a sense, to get things done in your role as selectman?
I think so.
You don't think? I mean, I was looking at questions that I wrote for the Meet the Candidates
Right.
4 years ago, I guess,
Right.
and or 5 years ago now. And one of them was that everybody comes into it kind of enthused and has their
Right.
ideas and so forth, and then seems to get assimilated into the group and kind of loses the drive to.
I think there is some truth to that. I think I've also matured and gotten a little smarter. I think sometimes I don't need to win the whole battle to have to feel like there's success. I also think that one thing I'm proud of the board that I've been these 3 years, is that we've pretty much operated on consensus. Very rarely have we had a 3-2 vote, and we've kind of come closer. When someone felt really strongly, we've sort of tweaked it to cover both sides, and I think that that's built some pretty good bridges.
Yeah, good. Matt Fee, thank you very much, and good luck to
All
you.
right. Thank you very much.